So my name's Scott Hames. My name's actually Scott Ascroft, but everyone's always known me as Scott Hames. So yeah, I've always stuck to Scott Hames, and I'm a journalist that focuses on lots of different topics in society. Mainly topics that probably don't get as much awareness from the media. So I did one recently on suicide and things of that nature. But currently, at this moment in time, I'm doing one on UFOs. And me and Mick have just been out doing some filming over Winter Hill, which has been fantastic. And we've had a really good day doing that. The reason why I wanted to do a UFO documentary is because society's shifting and there's a lot more attention on it now. So when I've said that I was going to actually do a UFO documentary, the way that I do these things to obviously make the connections with people is I go on Facebook groups and go all different kinds of Facebook groups, and it takes you down one rabbit hole, and then you kind of just opens up to lots of different warrens where you're speaking to all different kinds of people and you're making all different kinds of types of links and things like that. So it's a good way of finding out the information, and there were so many people that came forward that absolutely just shocks me. I didn't expect that many people to come forward with stories, pictures, videos, and some of them are really good, some of them are not so good, and I think that's obviously something we were discussing, that it's not one size fits all with this topic, and it's quite complex, but I've met lots of different people doing it, and it's been fantastic in that sense. And yeah, I always want to bring awareness out to people and make the public aware, but in a fair and balanced way, not with any of my opinions involved in it, or I want to do it impartial, and I just want to do it thorough and proper, and that's it really. So yeah, I mean, I had an encounter back in 2015, and me and my ex-partner, we lived on a place called MacDonald Street in Orrell, and it was like lots of rows of terrace houses, and I went outside to have a cigarette, and I smoked cigarettes at the time, but I don't anymore. But I went outside at the back, and it was between 10 and half 10 at night. And in this backyard, even though there's lots of terrace houses in front of me and to the side of me, you can see through a gap to about 10, 11 o'clock to your left, there's a church that pokes out, and you can see this church. And I noticed it straight away. There was a big circle metallic disc. Now, I say it was big. I wouldn't say it was ginormous or anything. It was a lot bigger than like a car. Probably the size of like a fighter jet or something like that. And it was just hovering, real still, just hovering. And it must have been, because the church roof is obviously at an angle like that, it wasn't sitting directly above. It must have just been a little bit further behind the church, which is really peculiar, because there's nothing really there other than some square houses and just this church. So I shouted my ex-partner in, and she come running in, and she just couldn't believe it, the same as I could. And we watched this for a good 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, that's how long we got to observe this big circle disc. Now, what we did is I asked her to take some photos, some videos, and these photos and videos weren't very good. They was just red kind of blotches that they just didn't really come out pretty well. But I do believe if I went out now with a phone in the middle of the night, I wouldn't really particularly get something that good with it anyway. But yeah, this circle disc, it was circular, and it was exactly like you would see in the movies. When you see these discs in the movies, I know there's a lot of different variations of the discs, but it was exactly how it was. I didn't see any windows on it or anything like that. It was just perfect circle. It must have been metallic looking. It was silver looking, even though it was dark. I could see kind of every kind of shape of everything about it, really. And it had red lights round the centre. So maybe I could see 8 lights round, and they were all red, and they were slowly pulsating on and off, like really slow and tenderly. And I've worked at the airport, and I've worked on close to runways, and I've had all the training on aircraft, and they're all pretty much the same. I mean, they have a red ACL light underneath and above, and they blink. It blinks. It weren't nothing like that. It was very slow and controlled, and they all did it at the same time, and there were no other lights other than these red pulsating lights. So we observed it for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and it didn't move that much. So it was very still. There was not a sound from it whatsoever. It was much too big to be a drone. People say it were a drone. Now, there weren't really drones back in 2015, and even if they were, I mean, as sophisticated as they are these days, there's no way you could get a drone that big and that silent. There weren't a sound from it. If you didn't have your eyesight, you wouldn't be able to know it was there. And it would slowly drop down, just very slowly. Just everything it did was very tenderly, and I would slowly lose sight of it because it would go behind, obviously, the church roof. It was going behind the church roof, and I'd lose sight of it. Now, then it'd come up ever so slowly as well, and before you know it, I could see the full craft again, and then it'd drop again a little bit, and sometimes I could only partially see it. But I watched it for a long period of time, and I phoned the police then. I can't remember at what point I phoned the police, but I called the police and I said, please come down and have a look at what I'm witnessing here. Me and my ex-partner are witnessing this craft. And they thought I was mad, they said. They didn't say that, but they said, do you report stuff like this often? And I thought, I know what you're getting at here. I said, I've never rang the police in my life for anything, so this is the first time I've ever rang the police. But I said, please come down, because you will see what I'm seeing. And I just want to say as well, because you haven't seen what I've seen in this way, you wouldn't know, but it's not up in the sky like an aeroplane. When you see aeroplanes are going up in the sky, this is not in the sky. You can imagine how high a church roof is. It's not very high. It's probably 75 feet off the ground. So it's not high up, and it wasn't far away. I've shown you the picture of where I was compared to this craft, and it's not far away at all. It's not even as far as like the end of the street. It's probably half of that. It's probably 50 to 75 yards again away from me. So we could see it so close up, and it was so personal to us. And I woke up the next morning thinking, because it was 10:30 at night, that people are going to know about this, but this is going to be big news. And I went into the shop in the morning and I mentioned it to the shopkeeper, and he hadn't got the faintest idea what was on about, and thought I was mad. And it wasn't, I didn't know what to kind of expect from it, because they're looking at you like you're stupid. So I went into my shell a little bit then and kind of just moved on from it for a few years. And I would try and tell a couple of people, and they'd always laugh at you. And I was the head coach at Wigan Athletic Football Club for many years, and I once told, we were driving past with the players on the coach, and I told one of the assistant coaches, and he just laughed at me. He thought I was joking. He thought I was actually telling a joke, because I said, with that church there, I once seen a hovering craft over that, and he actually thought I was telling a joke. It's moments like that. I'm not offended by people being like that. It just makes you, I don't want to go through that, telling people like that. And I've actually found, because of doing this investigation into this documentary, I've actually found my police call, which has been released, and it's in Manchester Evening News, and it says it must have been on the 4th of February 2015. And they've explained it's slightly different to how it says something about pulsating lights from afar, and so it's slightly different to how I explained it, but it's definitely the call, and I'd like to find out more about it. I've even, I don't know if I can do this, but I've even wanted to find records of what aircraft was in that area at that time, and I don't know whether you can get that on the Freedom of Information Act. I know you can in America, and I don't know if going back that far now whether you could, but it's something that I'd like to look into, is see if I could do it. And also, I want to do a knock around with them houses on a square to see if they're seeing anything. But I have reached out in those groups in that area. It was in Orrell in Wigan, and nobody can relate. No one can see anything, which is such a surprise to me because it's over at quite a busy main road, and I know it's 10:30 at night, so it's going to be quite quiet at that time. But I just feel like there's got to be somebody else who's seen it, and it didn't. You know, you hear people go, "Oh, it went off in such a speed," and it didn't. I don't actually remember that well, but I do know because it kept going underneath this church. I kept losing sight of it, and I'd wait for it to come back up, and it would come back up again slowly. I just went back under the church, and then I didn't see it again. And after so long, I didn't bother. And I wanted to go and walk around the streets and go to this and look at it, but I weren't terrified or anything like that, but it was something that I weren't going to approach. You know, it's just something that I didn't. My ex-partner watched it with me probably half the time that I did, and she just eventually got bored. She's seen it now, she's everything to see, and she's gone back inside, and I just stayed there watching it. And parts of me wishes that I would have gone up to this. But I was just saying to you before, you hear of stories of people getting radiation poisoning and things of that nature, and I don't know, maybe I made the right decision, maybe I made the wrong decision. I don't know, but it's something that has played on my mind. I think in the last 2 years, it's been something that has wreaked havoc in my mind sometimes. And I've even studied just Google Maps of this area, just looking into it, and I'm just baffled at the type of questions I'm asking is, what did that want? What was it there for in these square houses so low down, and just a church with there's not even a churchyard to this church or anything. It's just a built up area, and I can't understand it. And I've gone through all different types of thinking, whereas was this an experience for me? Was it just an experience that were made for me in some way? I don't know. You know, because it just seemed very personal. Yeah, it is. I've spent a lot of time thinking a lot of different things about it, and it is so surreal, and it's always stuck in my mind since then.
So if there's anyone out there from that area who maybe saw this that night, please get in touch. What I'll do is I'll put Scott's email below in the description, so you can get in touch with him if you were there that night, if you witnessed this. Thanks for watching this short video, but we're hoping to get somebody getting in touch with Scott to help and give him any information for his documentary he's making.